Welcome to Hillel at Texas A&M. I'm Rabbi Matt Rosenberg. I am the Executive Director of Hillel, and I want to welcome you to our building. And I hope that if you haven't had a chance to take a look, that you'll do so after the talk. We'll have beverages and cookies right outside after the evening's program. We are so very grateful to Dr. Hall and the Horticulture Department for bringing Mr. Wertheim to Texas A&M and for allowing him, who is a noted landscape architect, to speak to us tonight and teach us about his experiences during what we call the Shoah, the Holocaust, and World War II. And I'm just truly grateful for this opportunity to bring a man of his stature into the community so that we can individually learn from him and have this firsthand experience that obviously we will not be able to have in decades to come, as the population of those who survived that tragic period of our history are no longer with us, and those that remain are reduced in number. So I appreciate your attendance tonight. Thank you for taking time out from your busy schedules to be here tonight and to witness this important and historic evening. I'll turn it over to Dr. Thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the hospitality that we've experienced so far. The Department of Horticultural Sciences has a seminar series that we conduct every single semester. And we bring in noted authorities from across the country that are experts in the field related to nursery, greenhouse, landscape, garden centers, fruits and vegetables, biotechnology research, etc. And we're just delighted that we have one of the more renowned landscape architects in the country, a gentleman who is 93 3/4 years young, still practicing his craft, still beautifying the world with his talent, and has made an impact on so many individuals across the world, literally. And it's our pleasure as the department to have him come in and do a seminar tomorrow. But given his vast experiences, we thought that what a great treasure it would be to come and share some of those experiences from his childhood. And literally, we're going to try and fit 6 hours of storytelling in 90 minutes, right? So we are cognizant of the fact that folks have a limited schedule this evening, but I'm telling you, this gentleman is riveting. So we're going to have a lot of fun. This is a fireside chat. This is, my first name is Charlie, as well as some of you others in the room. And so this is kind of the Charlie Rose version of the Ernest Wertheim hour. And of course, I've already mentioned Ernest's talents have been recognized worldwide. He's received every single recognition from all the nursery and landscape architecture associations you can name. So, but our topic at hand tonight is to talk about Ernest the man and how Ernest has impacted literally thousands around the world in his short 93 3/4 years here. So with that, we're going to, it's very informal, and we may very well shed our jackets depending on the temperature and how that continues. So
well, I can't do it now because I'm supposed to keep this in my pocket.
And did I mention that Ernest has a very quick sense of humor, so we're in for a treat. So Ernest, why don't you kick us off tonight by talking a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
Well, Charles, think about being in Paris, not in the fall, but in spring. The lilacs are in bloom, the tulips are in bloom, the sun is out, mother and dad were walking hand in hand down the main avenue in Paris. 9 months later, Ernest arrived in story. So, my dad, who had served in the German army during World War I, was offered a very good job in Hamburg. So I was told, while I was still being breastfed, that we moved to Hamburg. And all my young years, I grew up in Hamburg. So you can now ask me the next question. In case you don't have it.
Hang on, let me just.
You can't hear me?
I cannot hear you.
Hello?
Test.
Hello? Are we here? Are we there? I guess. Can you hear me in the back? No?
Test.
Yes.
Sorry. Test.
Isn't it out of your line? Don't be too nervous now.
Okay. Try now.
So,
Better.
thank you. And you know, the basic thing is we must be patient. Whatever we do, we must be patient. So if you don't hear us, if something goes wrong, it's not me, it's the microphone. But raise your hand or let us know. Because I was told that you came here for a purpose, to hear us, and we certainly want you to hear us.
Right.
Now, when I was in Hamburg, I was going to a private school. My dad could afford that, and the private school was so much better than the public school. And I started that school when I was 5 1/4. And normally you don't start it until you're 5 3/4 or 6. So I started earlier in my life. Not that I was so smart, I just must have had a room for me. And in Germany, when you start the school, they have a bag, a colored bag, that's all filled with goodies. Goodies being things to eat, things that makes you fat. But at that time, we didn't know about calories. That word did not exist in any language. But it's something that I remember very vividly. All the mothers were waiting for the children to come out and was carrying those, in German they call it Tüte, and a große Tüte. What was really inside, I don't remember at all, but I know it was something we all liked. So that's how we started in Hamburg, Germany.
So, what did your dad do for a living?
Well, the job that he was offered in Hamburg dealt with recycling of iron. And when he was working for the German army, he was in charge of recycling all the broken guns, or they didn't have any tanks at that time, but whatever, big guns and so on, they'd be recycled. And this firm was specializing in that field. But then he had, then he had another job, and that was working for the Duke of Croy, which is one of the noble companies, noble families. They had in Dülmen, Germany, which was near Münster, a castle, beautiful gardens. And they also had a big forest in the area between Germany and Belgium. The Versailles Treaty gave that land with a forest on it to Belgium. But the treaty somehow called for the German government to reimburse the owner for that land. And it wasn't just the land. You know, we're in horticulture, and we grow trees. You plant a tree today, it's this big, and tomorrow it's this big, and in 20 years, it becomes lumber. And so Dad was very much involved with the German government, with the Belgian government, with the Duke, in getting that settled. And he was also basically a general manager of the estate and all the financial things that belonged to the Duke. So that was his job. He had to travel there from Hamburg to Munich. He usually traveled on a Sunday, and then he was there early on Monday morning, night flight. My dad, in fact, knew the schedule of trains all over Germany by now. So after, when I did a lot of traveling to my...
One more time.
Hmm?
Okay, there.
Now it's right?
Yeah, perfect.
I should have gone to Texas A&M. I would have known. In any case, he knew all the trains, you know, the big book with the train schedules, and I inherited that. When I flew a lot for my office, I learned the plane schedules, and I would know most of the plane schedules, even if I wouldn't travel on it. I don't know why, but some things were inherited, it's good or bad.
Now, you also went to a private school, if I recall.
Yes.
And yet you kind of accelerated the pace of school. Were you involved in sports at all? But you finished school early, so how did all that arise?
Well, I was involved in soccer games, not football, soccer. And I was involved in short and long distance running. And that helped a lot in the soccer game. You run quicker than the other people could. And then we would have a sled. We had a little park nearby. That's a little hill, maybe from up there down to here. Not like we have in California, in the Sierras. We thought it was great. I never really got into winter sports until I grew up.
Now, again, you finished school early, so how did that happen?
Well, I mentioned that I got to school when I was 5 1/4. And then in Germany you could jump a year if you were a little bit intelligent. And so I skipped a year, and that shortened it by really 2 years. And then when Hitler came to power, we could not operate a private school anymore. And so we then went to a public school for 1 year.
But you graduated from high school at the age of 14.
No, I did not. I didn't graduate.
Oh.
That's the point. They just took me as is.
Oh, so you did graduate from high school. All right,
But I'm still here.
But you graduated, no, you did not graduate, but you went to college at the age of 14.
That's right.
So how did that happen?
Well, we're jumping a little bit, but if you look at your notes, I will answer that. I know professors have certain rights. In any case, I have to step back a moment.
Okay, go ahead.
On January 30th, 1933, Hitler came to power. And on that particular next morning, my dad was reporting in at the Duke of Crows. And the Duke called and said, Dad had not arrived. It was unheard of. My dad was very punctual, and boy, we became punctual too, because that was drummed into us. That's why we started at 7:30. I insisted that we start at 7:30. In any case, Dad was kidnapped, and the Duke called, and my mother said, well, he should be there. He was on the train. Something must have happened. There was no train accident. Well, Dad was kidnapped by some of the people that were working for the Duke that were jealous of his position. And under Hitler, you had a free pass to do anything you wanted to do. Kind of when it came to Jewish people. So the Duke, when the Duke found out that he had been kidnapped and the location where he was unknown, he called my mother and said, leave your house, leave and don't leave any tracks. Go someplace, but leave right now. Now think about that you are with a 13-year and a 6-year son, and you're told to leave your lovely home that you have, lovely apartment. Well, mother was a wonderful woman, and she said to me, Ernesto, my name in German was Ernst, in English it's Ernest, but when she called me Ernesto, I knew there was something wrong. Normally I'd done something wrong, but in this case, she was very serious and said, we have to leave. We have to pack up, and she explained. And this was something unheard of in your life. There was no precedent to that. So we decided to go to some friends outside of Hamburg, good friends of my parents, and the boy was a good friend of mine because he also went to the private school. And we took the Stadtbahn, which is a train, local city train, to that place. And we took a few things with us. We felt we didn't want to go with baggage. So at that time, incidentally, the ladies didn't have the big handbags that they have now. So we had to get some nice things that we carried. Some unmentionables, and pajamas, nightgowns and things, and some rouge or whatever was necessary, very quickly. Well, when we got there, we talked to the Professor Solomon in Russian history, and we suddenly realized they were good friends, long-term friends. We suddenly realized maybe we're putting them into danger. And so they made some phone calls to other people to find out if other people had been arrested or kidnapped or something. And so then we decided we couldn't do that to our friends. And we went back to Hamburg to a hotel. Now we stayed in a hotel and for one night, and then we stayed in another hotel for another night. But now the first night, we didn't bring any food along. We're not supposed to go to a restaurant. We don't want to call for room service. So what did Ernest do? The hotel was very close to the big railroad station. And anybody who would travel at that time in Germany knows there's a hot dog man. A hot dog man carried this big hot dog thing hot. And then he called out hot dogs, and people would reach out of the windows and get a hot dog. And so I said to him, I wanted to have 6 hot dogs. And that was unheard of. A young 13-year-old asking, and he said, where's your money? Well, I had the money to pay for it. That was our dinner the first night. Nothing else. Because we didn't feel, we were afraid to leave the place. Now again, I want you to know, 30th of January 1933, you had just became chancellor. And you already experienced what many people experienced years thereafter, and much worse. Well, when I have to cut it, because we only have 90 minutes or so,
Right.
Maybe we could take a couple more hours. But in any case, when Dad came back, there's little things that I'm leaving out, and I like to call that's another story.
Right.
When I get invited back, that's called marketing. In any case, when Dad came back, the first thing he did, embraced my mother, and there were tears in his eyes. Now, you young people probably never have seen your dad in tears. I hadn't seen my dad. You know, you respect your dad, and in those times, dads were even more respected than today, and I think, and was a real experience. So when I saw that, I retired into the kitchen, heated some water for tea, and went to Mother's best cooking jar, got some cookies out, and brought them back so that Dad Mother could relax a little bit. And then when he did not talk about what he experienced, it was too sad to talk about it, but he certainly showed it. He was beaten up, he was blue eyes, blue cheeks, his body was so on. So we don't talk about that. In any case, I said to him, you know, Dad, I want to go to the United States. Now, that was a big statement. I mean, the United States was much further away from Germany than it is today. It was a long distance, you know, 7 or 8 days on a big liner and so on. So he said to me, well, son, why do you want to go? And I said, I don't think I want to live here anymore. And I've skipped some things because it was not comfortable in Germany at the time. There were communists, and then there were a lot of unemployed young people, like many of you, that didn't economic times. No, I mean young like you, not unemployed. Thank you for laughing. At my age, you can get away with some things. In any case, it was not economically a good time. And the young people had a lot of problems, and some people didn't have enough money for food. And when you walked on the street, and we lived in a nice place, you didn't feel comfortable. So I had already, for the last year, gone through that experience. And I said, I want to go to the United States. Of course, when you go to the United States at that time, you become a millionaire overnight. That was a dream. But if you read stories about people, that's what you thought about. And my dad said, what are you going to do there? And my mother said, what are you going to do? You take a step ladder in Times Square, climb up there, and said, here I am, give me a job. And so I was always interested in plants. My grandfather, I was dropped off with my grandparents when I was 5 years old. You know, to get a 5-year-old go on vacation, they're nuisance of 5-year-old. So you drop them off with the grandparents. My grandfather loved, they had 7 balconies. Every balcony had geraniums, fuchsias, plants that needed to be watered. And watering, in any case, if there's any gardener, watering is a science. He will tell you that in the Department of Horticulture. You don't just hire anybody from the street to start watering. And so I developed a love for plants. He also had a cacti collection. And when I left back for Hamburg, when my parents thought that I had, maybe they should take care of me after all, picked me up in Berlin, we went back to Hamburg with several cuttings of cacti that I started to park and grow. When I was 9 years old, I belonged to the cacti society. I knew more about cacti than about poems in German, Schiller or Goethe. I really was highly interested in that. And I listened to talks that people went into the wild country collecting, and that was very interesting to me. So that's what I wanted to become. Well, with the things that started with Hitler, going to the university became a more difficult thing. So there was a horticultural college, and where Dad had employed many of the graduates for the gardens of the Duke of Prodi, and the Duke gave money to the college, and you know how that works here. In all these lovely buildings.
So you had connections.
And so he said to him, will you take my son? And he said, no, your son is not a graduate from high school. And even though I had skipped 2 years, I still didn't have graduation. And he said, well, normally you give each person that applies here an exam. Give my son an exam like you did to the others. And if he passes, you take him. If he doesn't, there won't be any talk about it. Well, very fortunately, that exam was very horticultural and not on physics or chemistry, which I would have flunked immediately. And so I passed among 350 people at the 10th best one. And they had to take me. Now, is that something to copy? I would say no. As a 14-year-old to be with 18, 19, 20, it's not an easy time. But that's why I started with 14. And just to add a little story to it, is it already 9 o'clock? Is the first day the professor took us out to a rhubarb field. And the rhubarb field was like any other agricultural field, 200, 300 feet long. And they gave you a spade. Now a German spade is only this high. It's not like a shovel, it's a short. And so they gave the spade, and I took the spade and I pushed it in the soil, lifted it up to my belt and did this. Well, that's not the way it's made. And the professor said, well, have you ever spaded before? And I didn't grow up in a garden, I grew up on balconies. And I said, no, but I really came here to get an education. Now, I was young, and sometimes you say things you shouldn't say. And the professor, I can still see it today, and that was in April 1934. This young man, those people who graduate from this school, implying right away I had not a chance to graduate. I hadn't even started yet. Very quickly get very responsible positions. And when you're telling other people what to do, you better learn what the work is all about. And that is called education. Yes, you're going to get an education, but you may not last very long. Yeah. Well, I got back to that particular point when we get to my first job in California, but there's a big section in between.
Right. So, all right, let's fast forward through time. You graduate from college, even though you didn't graduate from high school. And what do you do then? When you got back?
While I was in college, remind me when I'm with you at your house to tell you the story about understock and a lot of interesting things that we learned that we don't have time about. But when I came back, I got a job right away. In fact, my grandmother was in charge of one of the senior citizens housing Jewish places. It was very nice where my other grandmother was. And they needed to remove a stump of a big pine tree. And a friend of mine that went to the same school, and we bid on it. We got the job. Well, just to let the young students know, be careful, always estimate it right, and allow for a contingency. Now, those people that were with us at dinner, I told them, if you should have 2 boyfriends, always have one in reserve. And so that is called a contingency. When you estimate a job, you have to have something in reserve. Well, we didn't, and it took us 3 times as long as I thought, but it was a wonderful lesson. It never happened again. Now,
what year was this?
That was in 37. Now, when I came back, I said to my dad, I want to now go to America. I wanted to go right away in 33. And it was a major error that we didn't. Do I blame my dad? No. Because if I was explaining this afternoon, we all are rooted in our community. We are rooted even though Washington right now doesn't act very American-like. It's our country, and College Station is our home, and we are rooted here. And to say because we don't like the mayor, or we don't like the board of supervisors, or whatever you call it locally, we leave, that's much easier said than done. And a lot of Jewish people didn't think that what happened could happen. Unfortunately, most of us had not read the book of Hitler's Mein Kampf. If we would have had read it, I think our eyes would have opened. But it's very, very difficult to just say, I'm going to pack up when your family lived there, I told you this afternoon, my grandparents' house was built in 1865. I mean, there's roots here, and you don't leave that so easy. You always hope for the better. You know, the ladies hope that the husbands will get more sensitive to your wishes. And I tell the young people, when you say I do, always say yes, dear, right away.
But on January 30th of 1933, did you feel a sense of foreboding?
Could you repeat that?
When Hitler took over chancellorship, did you feel a sense of foreboding?
In 34 or
January 30th, 1933.
I don't think I got the question.
Yeah, January 30, 1933.
Yeah.
What was there a sense of foreboding? So you related the...
Well, you know, there was political upheaval. And then Hindenburg appointed Hitler. And Hitler, with his speeches, kind of excited the nation and all the things he wanted to do and promised all kinds of things. And that had an effect on the population. But we were really otherwise at that moment not affected, other than what happened to my dad. But very shortly thereafter, the boy across the street who went with me to kindergarten and also private school and to the public school. One day I called at his apartment that we were going to play together, and he came out and was very embarrassed and said, I can't talk to you anymore. My dad is a submarine captain and we can't deal with any Jewish people. I mean, all those years of a close friendship, even we shared the first cigarette, that probably was almost my last. But those things happened, and they very much affected the person. Does that answer your question? No.
So as early as 1933, you felt that the Jewish community was in danger?
Not all day long, not all week long, but yes. And that experience from my dad certainly had an effect on my mother and myself. My younger brother didn't understand it yet.
Now you met a Dr. Niemöller at the church there in Ireland. Tell us how that fits into the story.
Well, I have to go a little sideways here. My family, not my direct family, but my grandmother's sister married another Wertheim, Wilhelm Wertheim. There are two different families, but that family owned the Wertheim department store, a high-class department store in Berlin. And they had a beautiful estate, big villa in Dahlem, which was a suburb of Berlin. And they had, Aunt Martha couldn't have children, so they adopted a child, and that child was non-Jewish. And she was a little older than I was, and we were good friends. And when the wedding was in this beautiful villa, I had a blank check to do all the flowers. Now imagine 45 rooms, many of them social rooms, and I could go to the flower market and buy whatever I wanted to buy, have containers, have all the maids help me arrange them. Fantastic experience. And for that wedding, Pastor Niemöller came to the wedding because my cousin went to that church and he was invited to the wedding. And we got acquainted. And he was one of the church people that objected to Hitler and said so in his church, and was very, very courageous. And I call it courageous. Other people might have said stupid, because the wonderful guy ended up in a concentration camp and got killed there. But he approached me and said, he had heard about my dad, and he said, would you be interested to help people go across the German-Czechoslovakian border via skis and get some people, young people out? And I was also young. When you're young, you are sometimes more enthusiastic than you should be, but that comes with age. And so he said, I know a ski instructor on the German side of the Czechoslovakian border, and that particular mountain range is called the Riesengebirge. I took ski lessons, and that particular ski instructor then showed me the way how you can get into Czechoslovakia without running into border control. Now the way it was done is that you hike. There were no ski lifts. There were no ski lifts. There were rope tours. So you hiked up. And Germans like to hike, and you did it on your skis with skins on it, and you accomplished something. I'm really good. I climbed up to the Schneekappe. But what it really was, the Schneekappe was like this. Here was a hut, here was Czechoslovakia, here was Germany. There was a very small area up there. And when the snowstorm started, or when the fall came in, the border control went into the hut where it was warm, and I always had hot chocolate with whipped cream, no calories yet. And they had beer. Well, when a storm came up, we left there. I took people up. You took the road this way, and then you made a very sharp turn downhill. You were in Czechoslovakia. And the border control normally did not catch you. So I did this 3 different times, taking 9 to 10 people each time. It was all planned in Berlin. Everybody traveled there on their own. They could never be seen together. They were in different hotels. They had to climb up themselves. Obviously, they had to know how to ski, otherwise it wouldn't work. But then when we got down, I went down about something like a couple of 100 feet away, because these people would often shoot at the people that tried to do that, and then waited for the others. They followed my tracks. And then we went all the way down. And the Quakers were the ones that greeted us on the bottom of the hill, and they took care of those young people. And they had no idea from where they were going, but the Quakers were just great people. And the Quakers were the ones that also created the Kindertransport, children's transport. When after Crystal Night, there were a lot of men were arrested, hundreds of them. And some of them had, of course, children. And the British had passed a law that they would let 10,000 children in from Jewish families into England. And so they had transports where the children were on. My youngest brother was one of them, because mother was working for a Jewish organization, organizing that, and she put her youngest child on that.
So tell us a little bit about that night, the 9th of November.
November 9th? Well, just before that date, a Polish young man shot a German diplomat in Paris, and that triggered the Crystal Night. I'm confident, and I can't prove it, but I'm confident that was all planned ahead of time, and maybe for a later date, that they used that death in Paris to make all the Jewish people suffer. And I can only tell you, I've read and I know from people that were in other cities, it was a horrible night. Lots of people were arrested. My grandmother's phone started ringing at 9 o'clock in the morning of people where husbands had arrested, and what to do about it, and exchanging stories, so to say. I was at home, in my grandmother's home, with mother and father, and we had an arrangement with the portier. The portier was a man and his wife who took care of this apartment house, and he was down on the floor level, every his little apartment. And if he pressed a button that said red, some Gestapo was on the way up. If it was green, then there was no problem. Well, the red button went on, and we knew what was happening. I mean, we knew it because it happened in so many other families that we knew of. So Dad said to me, son, just disappear. Just disappear. And those were the last words that I heard my dad talk to me. And he was very concerned that I would not be there when the Gestapo rings the bell. Now we had a front stairs and we had back stairs. I went down the back stairs, which went into the courtyard. Actually, the courtyard used to be where the horses and the wagons were. It was in 1865, they didn't have a Ford or similar car. And so and I went over the fence, and so I was away in the back street. And then I had to say, all right, Dad said to get out. Now what do you do next? You can't go back. And so I went to the main street, and that's when I saw a lot of the things that you read about, people being herded like sheep on the street, people being hurt with guns. I saw one man that was lying on the street, another car drive right over it. Saw a person being hung upside down from a lamppost. I mean, things that you don't want to hear about, things that during the night very often I dreamt about for many, many years. I also saw our synagogue, beautiful, beautiful synagogue, being burned, including the Torah and everything else. And then I just recently got a photograph from somebody showing that it was rebuilt and it's all new and very lovely. I'd like to go back just for sentimental reasons. But that night, I finally managed to get on a subway and go out to my aunt's place in Darlin, where I then went to a lady landscape architect for whom I was working, and I stayed with her because nobody would think of coming there. That was Christian night. That was the end of my relationship with my dad.
So you never saw your dad again? Yeah. Now, what about your mother? You also said goodbye to your mother that time. What were her instructions?
Well, when my papers finally were in order, you know, it was a major problem to get into this country because you had to have a visa. You couldn't get a visa without an affidavit that somebody vouched for you. And that was a good ruling. I mean, if you think about it, you can't take everybody from Syria or wherever these protests are into this country. Who's taking care of the people? And so somebody has to vouch for you. And to be able to get that took a lot of time. And then you also had to, I had to be released from the army. Even though you were Jewish and were supposed to be eliminated, you were still, could be drafted for the army. And that took a lot of effort, which is another story I told you this afternoon, but we don't have time for that. And then after this deal in Paris, everything that you took out, you had to pay the German government the cost of it. I mean, if I had a lovely coat or nice suit on, or whatever you took, I had the gold watch of my grandfather's, you paid for that. And I mean, it was a fortune. Fortunately, I was able to do it because I was working. But the worst thing was that at that time, right after Christmas night, law came out where the Jewish people had to give X percentage of their wealth. Now, wealth is not always on the bank, X number of dollars. Wealth is your home, wealth is your car, wealth is your stocks or the lovely furniture or the paintings you have. And that more or less eliminated cash. I'm mentioning that to you because I'll come back to that. And that was very shortly before I left. So when I get all my papers together, we took a train, my mother and I took a train to, on the 1st of December, my younger brother was sent on a kinder transport. Now think, 9th November, my dad, for the 3rd time, put in a concentration camp. Your youngest son, 7 years old, is sent to England without knowing if you ever can catch up. Your middle son is now going to America, which is way, way over there. So when I was at the station, my mother was a terrific woman. In fact, this is addressed to a gentleman. When I grew up, a woman basically was supposed to be a good cook, take care of, make the children, and train the children. And I tell you, many of the women, including my mother, were stronger than many men. I gained an awful lot of respect for women when I saw that in Germany. So here was my mother taking me to Hamburg main station, the same station where I got the hot dogs, remember? Same station, same hotel. And when I said goodbye and had my arms around her, she said, just be sure to take care of my baby. Now, a baby was my younger brother. He was sent to England. I had $65 in my pocket. That's all you could take out. And had no idea of how I was going to make it in this new country. But I was told I carried the responsibility, take care of your brother. And if you think about it, a woman and her child, and she gave the child away. My oldest brother was already in Chile. Now the last one is leaving. What's life all about? I can remember this as clearly as it happened yesterday. Now, you need to understand, you're not just going on a ship. So now all my papers were perfect, perfect. And I came to the border, Dutch border, and the German control people, soil people, came in and they looked at my passport, which was perfectly in order, and she said, you have to get off. And they took my baggage, I was put into their office, and all I can think about is when they saw the name Wertheim, and the department store was well known, here's somebody who has money. And it wasn't our money, it was my aunt's money. But here I was taken off. And they said, went through all my pockets, and I had my golden watch, and I had my paper that was legal to take it, my grandfather's watch. You know, these are all golden watches, you know how they work? You know, you pick something and it opened up. My grandfather would say when they had a party, oh, it's time for me to go to bed. That meant you better go home now. So this had a real meaning to me, this gold watch, more in sentimental value than anything else. And so they said it cost you $10,000, 10,000 marks for having this, trying to smuggle that watch. I wasn't smuggling it. But these people got away with murder, so to say. Now, under normal circumstances, I might have been able to gather that, but I knew Mother had no money. I mean, I knew the check had been written for for a large amount, and 10,000 Deutschmark at that time was a lot of money, a lot of money. I don't want to you could probably do that without an
It's a lot of money.
Good. And so I said, no way. So they put me into a closet, and that closet had nails from all sides and from the top. So if you were doing this, then the back would hit the nails. I mean, a very, very awkward way to do it. Well, I was not able to come up with any solution. And I knew if they kept me there that I, in a few hours, would not be alive. And so I said, well, I would call my mother. Now you also have to remember, Hamburg, Dutch border. That took several hours. Mother was in Berlin, in Hamburg, was going back to Berlin. Was she already home? How do you communicate? And it's amazing how you learn in those times to talk to each other without saying the words that are dangerous to say. So she was fortunately at home, and I told her the problem. And not what they were doing to me, but she understood. And I said, Mother, I know you don't have the money. I don't want you to kill yourself. I don't want you to worry about it. But if there's a possibility, what was it? How do you wire money? I've seen your moment. Not a telegram, but United.
Western Union?
Yes. And you know, could send money that way. And they gave us the address. And then they closed the station. And nobody in town would take me even in the hotel. They all knew that something was up, and they didn't take a chance. Not even a bed and breakfast place. So I walked around the little town. I was thinking maybe I cross the border, but I also knew they had dogs and officers along it. Then I met a young man who had heard about it, young German man, and he said, don't try to cross the border, you won't make it. So they all know about it, you won't make it. He said, try to just sit at the station on the cold concrete steps and try to do some exercise to say,